Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Decoded by Divas. Today we have a very exciting episode. We're going to be speaking with Caitlin Szikszai from Republic.
Regulatory change really opened up a big opportunity to democratize the investing market, especially with decentralization and participation being at the core of a lot of these projects.
It'll be like a little blooper in the beginning to let people know that we're fun, not
There's
just
also
smart.
yes.
What about
Yeah.
KOLs? How do I know if there is no filter? The YouTubers and stuff. But thank you. That's just me.
PR is always helpful. I think the more eyes you have on.
I was going to say, if you don't say yes, I'm going to have to cut this out. Yeah, Jer. Everyone's looking for like the numbers, right? The numbers on socials, community.
I always will go for quality over quantity. I have learned from the years that I've worked with a lot of different companies, projects that numbers don't always translate.
So first of all, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us on Decoded. It's a great honor to have you. And also Happy New Year.
Thank you.
I think our first call from since the new year. So how I like to start this is for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, like your background and how you got into the world of Web3, and then we can kind of like take it into how you got into Republic.
Definitely. I actually started off on the traditional kind of more venture side of things, and Republic really was my gateway into Web3. I had worked at a growth fund during university, and I was studying international business at San Diego State. And I was introduced to Republic by a friend just by chance. Ended up really liking the team and joined helping originally. Kind of more traditional startups raise capital through our investment portal. I was with Republic for, about 3.5 years, I would say. Always had exposure to Web3 because of our crypto arm, which is really strong, but started getting staffed on more projects in this space. And then, about, I want to say like 6 months ago, fully joined the crypto team, and it's been a lot of fun and a huge new learning experience for me. So I really enjoyed that.
Do you find it to be like a massive difference between the Web3 side of things, like dealing with companies, dealing with teams and stuff?
I think that it's the fundraising process was a lot more similar than I would have expected. I think that rather than raising, I think a lot of crypto projects do raise equity financing kind of at the very beginning, but then it kind of shifts over a lot of the times to token financing. So the stages were a lot more similar than I thought. And so it made that transition easy because you're still moving through the phases of growing a company. And I think being at Republic for a few years before, watching and being very well of what our crypto team was doing, just because there's so many exciting things they were doing in the space, was always shared within the company too, was helpful. So when I switched over, I had a little bit more of a bearing. But I think that if I kind of joined cold turkey, like into a Web3 company and had no prior experience, it probably would have been a little bit confusing. But the aspect of learning, a whole new set of things and vocabularies and learning what these startups and companies are doing too has been really, really cool to see and refreshing.
No, I can imagine. Can you give us an explanation in like really simple terms as to what is Republic for some people who may not know? Because I know a lot of people kind of don't really know, like they'll assume it's like just fundraising or a launch pad and all these different things. So just if you could give us like a nice little overview of that.
Yes, definitely. So Republic started back in 2016 when the passing of the Jobs Act came along. And that really opened the private, kind of investment market to non-accredited investors. Previously it was only high net worth individuals or VCs, institutional investors, who were able to invest into private companies before they IPO'd onto the market. So that regulatory change really opened up a big opportunity to democratize the investing market. Republic really focused on opening up those opportunities. So we started as a investment platform, running campaigns for startup companies to raise funds from their community, and also just kind of the wider community of investors who, look a little bit more similar to you and me, and are kind of boots on the ground in comparison to people in offices. I think that with startup investing, there's a huge amount of opportunity for, it's definitely risky, but there's high growth opportunities as well for people to be able to invest into. So that's how we started off. Soon after, we opened up both our private investing arm, Republic Capital, and then also our crypto advisory arm, Republic Crypto. And really, we've grown so much over the past 7 years of being along. We're now a global investment platform. Republic Capital has a really amazing portfolio. And then I think, how a lot of listeners to this podcast might know us is through Republic Crypto. And, we've been able to work with a lot of amazing projects, kind of acting as a bridge for Web2 companies to go into Web3 and be able to create, more of those decentralized opportunities for their communities.
That's really interesting. You mentioned the regulatory side of things. And can you tell us a bit about the regulatory first take on the Web3 market that Republic has?
Yeah, definitely. So we are a funding portal and broker-dealer that's registered with the SEC and regulated by FINRA. So really what we do is focus on running, fundraisers in a really compliant manner and kind of within these security exemptions that they have. We're definitely not saying that underlying utility tokens are securities. We like to run token sales in a compliant manner and kind of under these Reg S and Reg D security exemptions to allow for U.S. investors to be able to participate and then also to be able to market to U.S. investors. We are the only token launchpad that is operating kind of under the SEC oversight and able to do these types of raises. And so it really does allow for companies and projects to expand the audience that they're able to raise from and really not have to leave any of their community members out. I think that especially with decentralization and participation being at the core of a lot of these projects, being able to involve every single community member is super important. And so we really try to facilitate in this way.
What do you think is the most challenging part of obviously operating under FINRA and the SEC?
Yes, I think that, we have been operating in this space for many years. We have a really amazing legal team who are very attuned to the different rules and reg and, kind of every single small detail. So on our end, we really take care of the expertise there. Obviously we do due diligence on all of these projects, not only through our kind of like more retail facing side, but we also have our crypto team step in and do tech diligence on all of the companies that we host on our offerings. We are very attuned to what we're putting in front of investors and obviously want to make sure that, every project that we do put on is sound and we feel like, a good opportunity or kind of a, generally safe opportunity to put in front of them. So that's that. And then also too, on the marketing side of things, we have a team of support and we also do review, campaign pages, content before it's put out just to make sure that everything that's said is following the guidelines. So I think that although it can be a little bit cumbersome in terms of the way that we have to conduct due diligence and do a bunch of page reviews and have our legal team step in and check documents. I think it's the benefit of working with Republic is that we really care and we take a lot of this stuff seriously. We've laid out these processes and also relationships over the past 7 years to be able to do these types of raises. And so it's now, I would say pretty smooth, but there's a lot of work that gets done behind the scenes and to make sure it goes that way.
Yeah, I can imagine because I know from like from an outside perspective, it's just kind of like, oh, we're just waiting to hear back. But internally, I can imagine it's like an entire like process that I don't even want to begin to imagine. It just can imagine it's insanely hectic. Let's discuss a little bit. I know we were talking about community focused token sales. Can you elaborate maybe a little bit on the benefits of community focused token sales and for the projects that are looking to raise funds through these communities?
Yeah,
Like,
totally. I would I would say, community focused sales at the end of the day really allow for user facing companies and projects to reward their earliest supporters. And I think there's all sorts of benefits that come out of that. It increases loyalty, it increases evangelism. And then also at the same time too, it increases the initial base of token holders pre-exchange listing. And so I think that ultimately it kind of creates this more organic support system. I think also at the same time too, with a big event such as a token sale, it creates a lot of ability to market and build up hype. It just kind of puts the token on more people's radar, especially like before an exchange listing, because you're able to talk about it earlier, drum up excitement, press and PR around it, things like that.
In your opinion, when do you think is the best time for that process of like community token sales?
Definitely. I think that, it really depends. I think that for a company or project, knowing that they've already put in some effort towards building and growing their community is huge. Knowing that they've already laid out the groundwork of creating communication channels and building up an initial loyalty base is also great because, doing a community token sale does take work, and it's probably something that you want to do maybe once or twice before that exchange listing. And so ensuring that you're actually able to present the opportunity in front of as many people as possible at that given time is super important. So I would say, already having a bit of that go-to-market done, oftentimes a little bit before TGE or exchange listing, are also kind of just like right alongside a venture round if you're offering the same terms, because I do think a lot of publicity does come about because of that as well.
How do you think those efforts would kind of coincide with each other, like the different fundraising avenues to community fundraising?
Can create a lot of good signal, especially if you are pitching to institutional investors or even kind of like talking to exchanges about listing. And boasting community numbers. I think oftentimes it's really great in those cases for them to see that there actually is like a community that is taking action and that is excited about the token that is upcoming. So being able to show traction can be a really helpful thing on the flip side, where projects and companies can show to investors and exchanges of, hey, we have a strong community that is reacting to what we're putting out there. But I think really too, like as long as you're offering the same terms, a lot about Web3 is, democratization and, kind of opening up investment. And so making sure that it's fair is also a very important thing in that sense.
Do you find it more, I'd say, attractive in a way when you see a project's already been working on the community fundraising side of things, like when they've raised a significant amount just from communities and let's say KOLs as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, a lot of projects and companies, like their timelines are very much so about adoption. And so showing pre-adoption through something like a community sale is huge, because it's a big validator. I think that, through a lot of the companies that I chat to, there's some very aggressive goals that are thrown out there. And I think in an ideal world, like it would be really nice if they could all hit that. But, there always needs to be some sort of precursor that gives you confidence that they actually will be able to execute on it.
You guys as Republic, you've had some really insane launches and like crazy funds were raised for some of them. Can you tell us about some of the best in terms of like the overall process and the experience?
I would say kind of like at the beginning years, we really focused on high volume token sales. One of our most amazing ones was for Siri Network, which we were able to raise $26 million in less than 24 hours for their network and kind of just the wider Web3 community. That was really during the heyday of the crypto market that got a ton of notability, and it definitely was exciting. And, a lot of learnings happened on our end in terms of like how to deal with massive amounts of volume and make sure that communications were going out clearly. We Also, we're able to host a token sale for Chingari, India's largest social app. That was really awesome because it was a very community-focused raise. There are a lot of people who were excited to get into that launch, and it really was a good use case of a consumer-facing app using a token, to build loyalty and then also just kind of like rile up their community in that sense. And then we also launched our own security token, the Republic Note, and that recently started on trading on INX, the secondaries exchange that we've partnered with. But, we were able to do our own community raise. We've raised over $30 million. And I think that, it was really just a true, showing that we actually are, kind of using our platform and, our methodology around security tokens. It's a huge thing to be able to point to and say that we've actually used it ourselves, when chatting to companies. Sharing that was really awesome. And I think that it, kind of did help expand our goal of being able to democratize investing because all note holders, actually get exposure and, dividend exposure to our portfolio that we have.
No, that's really impressive. Congratulations on that. Everyone's looking for like the numbers, right? The numbers on socials, community, and then to the point where people are going and saying, oh, I'm going to, just bought my community and bought my socials so I can get those numbers. I don't even know how to phrase it, but where do you guys like, where's your, maybe personally, what's your stance on that? Because for me, for instance, I say I prefer more engagement as long as, the numbers are realistic, but people come back and say, oh, the numbers need to be like 10,000 plus.
That's a good question. I always will go for quality over quantity. I think because at the end of the day, I've seen companies boast numbers and I have not seen a ton of success. Setting realistic expectations with the companies that I work with is the biggest things I focus on in conversations. And I have learned from the years that I've worked with a lot of different companies, projects that numbers don't always translate. I think that quality, knowing that there are kind of like leaders or like natural ambassadors in communities that are really outspoken about a project, that are interacting in a large manner, is really important, to be able to pre-know success.
What about KOLs, the YouTubers and stuff? You guys fans or?
I think KOLs can be helpful. Because they definitely do widen your audience base. I think it's good for building trust with not that kind of like first line of defense, which is your direct community, but just getting you out in front of a wider audience. So more eyes is helpful, but I think at the end of the day, like the project and the utility of the token really has to be compelling, for people to invest into it. So I think it does help with that step of like getting you in front of more eyes. But at the end of the day, it's really just going to depend on like the project. And what they're doing to see if it like hits and resonates with those people.
I'm 50-50 on it, so I was curious. What do you think the best practices are for projects when it comes to the engagement and marketing strategies? I know we touched on the engagement side a little bit, but yeah.
Definitely. I think kind of generally seeing companies and projects with weekly or kind of monthly town halls and updates. A lot of transparency and consistent communications is huge. I think it really helps a community feel like they're riding along in the building journey, and that transparency helps build a lot of trust. And so I think that overall excitement is up, trust is up. People are really willing to go along with that project for the long run. So that's a huge signal. I think that seeing individual voices, so maybe it's people that are helping build the project, but also just like generally really excited, be very outspoken in, community channels or Discords is huge because it shows that, there are people who organically come on and are really excited about the project and kind of the product that they're putting out there. So I think it shows a lot of fit to just like the real person in that sense. And then when it comes to like community sale marketing, a tactic that we use is an allow list, which is really helpful. It gives companies and projects the ability to bring on their community members first, really give them exclusive access at the beginning of a sale. I think it helps the community feel more rewarded and kind of like they're getting the advantage there because they do kind of have first right to invest. And then additionally, it helps build up momentum. So, the days that you go public, the
Yeah.
amount of people who have actually, bought into the token sale is up. It, creates a lot of good signaling for those people who aren't as familiar with the project or company and are kind of looking in and want to know that there is an active community behind it. So, I'd say that awareness and momentum building at the very beginning for us is something that we really try to help with and feel like is really important as well.
Do you think exposure from a PR perspective, do you think that that's also quite important for you guys, or is that?
PR is always helpful. I think the more eyes you have on the opportunity is huge because, that just allows for more conversion at the end of the day. So PR is really, really helpful.
I was going to say, if you don't say yes, I'm going to have to cut this out. Yeah, Jer.
The way that I always have said it is whenever you're able to tie known names to your project, whether it be articles written about you, VCs that have invested with you, different partners that you've partnered with, it just kind of creates a little bit more trust, right? Because these are brands that we love and know, and they're associated with your project, and it always brings more comfortability. I think, in the case of your own community, probably not so much, but for those people who are at that second and third line of, have heard of you before, or maybe not so familiar, or the people who have never heard of you before, those other names will really help with the, the trust building in that case.
Yeah, I agree in a non-biased way.
Mhm.
What do you think is a common mistake for companies that are launching projects or products or tokens in Web3, the most common ones?
Yes, I think that lack of transparency is a really big one. Not necessarily offering enough community ownership too. Like if you see a project that, kind of the main owners are kind of the ones who've started it, but they don't necessarily share a lot with their community. I think that kind of just goes against the general thesis of Web3. And then I do think too, just kind of ambitious goal setting. I had spoken to that before. If companies are setting very kind of aggressive and ambitious goals, in the case that they aren't able to hit on that, it can create a lot of FUD in their community, and people are just kind of less trusting that they'll be able to hit it next time. So, I think that sizing up goals in a logical way and ensuring that they're able to hit it and continue kind of putting out those goals and doing the same will always just create more trust within a community. And then kind of on the token side of things, I think that a lot of the times we'll see projects not hold enough tokens in the reserve. And I do think that it's always really, really helpful to kind of have some on hand, in the case that they want to give last minute rewards or launch further initiatives. And then also to say, if they have special cases, say maybe a user was hacked and they really want to be able to make a community member whole because that's just the way they run, something that is often something that's overlooked, and they'll kind of just distribute out majority of their tokens without keeping those things in mind and keeping that growth that they have for their company and community in mind in that way.
What's Republic's plan in this next few years? Is there a roadmap that you guys have?
I think Republic is a pretty big company, and we also do have multiple business lines in that sense. On the token side of things, I can say that we're super excited to be ramping up our utility token sale process. Just in the past few months, we've hosted an array of campaigns and have, a lot more slated for Q1 and Q2. I think that now that the market is starting to warm back up, we're not only focusing on those super large raises that we might have before, but really have worked out a process to be able to launch more token sales and kind of operate in a launch pad in that way. So that's something that me and my team are doing that are really excited about. I think that we're starting to get a lot of notoriety in the security token space as well. So whether that just be tokenizing equity in kind of a basic way, or even creating, customized security tokens and then being able to offer it on secondaries exchanges, INX in specific, is something that we would really like. So I think tokenizing, majority of, the projects that we raise for on the platform and the business that we do is something that's pretty huge. Even on the traditional startup side, I think that being able to see those companies, have tokens associated with equity that they put out and being able to be traded on the secondaries exchange would be really exciting. So just kind of creating more liquidity in the private market instead of, only having the majority of liquidity be in the public market, that we've traditionally seen so far.
Is there anything about Republic that people maybe don't know that you would like them to know?
Totally. I think that, oftentimes people will come to Republic because of companies that they've seen raise on our platform or kind of just one bit and kind of reference that they have. But at the end of the day, we are really dynamic in terms of the ways that we can work with companies, whether it be an early stage company or a later stage company. I think that, like, for example, with our advisory services, companies will come and will help build out their tokenomics and kind of what that roadmap looks like for them. And then, again, being able to work with them at a later stage, do a token offering before they go to TGE, things like that. It really allows for us to interact with companies at all different stages of their journeys. And so I think that we're really not a one size fits all. Our team is really excited about having conversations and figuring out exactly where we can be of most help and kind of like plug in our services. And we do have a whole array of services as well. So I think that, we oftentimes are able to work with companies in unexpected ways. And so, it's always kind of just having that first conversation and seeing where the synergies may lie, just because, traditionally, I think people will notice one thing that we do and be like, okay, this seems like a fit, but maybe not because of X reason. But in reality, we're really able to kind of customize what we do in a way so that can be helpful to the company and project.
What's your favorite stage to work with a project? Like when they come to you, where do you want them to be?
Yeah,
Ideally.
I think that, personally, and, I think that everyone has their different opinions. I think for the type of work that I do with the more public facing raises, post go to market is always exciting. I think that being able to see that tangible and real world traction is like a huge signal to me. And I think that, being able to have some sort of like product on market is exciting as well. So that's really where I like to see companies to be. Vision of where they're going to take their company is really inspiring at the same time too. I'm really lucky that I get to talk to so many inspirational like teams and founders in that way.
Yeah, that's really nice. I don't think I have any other questions. I learned a lot more on Republic side from what you guys do. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Decoded. I really hope you enjoyed it and stay tuned for more. And as always, what I hate to say, but I know I have to, please like, comment, and subscribe. Masalama. Bye-bye. Ciao. Arrivederci. Okay. Good. Jeremy, can you cut?